So I talked about the current understanding of value and its history. Let's now look at what types of value there are. And there's two broad approaches to this. The first is the functional approach. So let's consider this forest and this stream and wonder, what does it do for us? And there's a whole bunch of different things. And they are typically called services. And one type of service is a provisioning service. A forest brings wood for timber and for fuel. The little stream that you saw brings fresh water. There may be berries in the forest, and so on and so forth. So that is one thing that this forest does for us. It also provides regulating services. Forests store water and therefore prevent floods as well as droughts as they slowly release water later. The water is often cleaned through the chemistry and the biology of the water. It stores carbon, trees cool, and so on and so forth. Those are called regulating services. And then a forest also provides so-called cultural services. That is, they can be used for recreation and ecotourism, and they can also be used to teach kids about ecosystems, and some people are inspired by pretty pictures like this. And furthermore, there's also supporting services. There's all sorts of things that are going on in the forest. One of the things that is happening, for instance, is that soil is formed, which is good for all plants and eventually for anything that eats those plants or eats those things that eats those plants. So that is one approach to classify or create a typology of value. There's another, and this is particularly popular amongst ecologists, people like that. Economists take a slightly different approach to this, and that works something as follows. So, total economic value, that's the thing we're eventually interested in, consists of three types of values: use values, option values, and non-use values. And then use values are further split into direct and indirect values. I'll give examples in a second. And then the direct use values are then split even further into consumptive or extractive use values and non-consumptive values. Option values are pure option values and quasi-option values, and non-use values are split into the use by others and pure existence values, and the other use values are further split into bequest values and altruism. Now this all sounds horribly abstract, so let's look at a forest again, this time seen from the top, and wonder, what are these values I just talked about. So here is the list again, and we're considering a rainforest. What would be consumptive direct use of that forest? Well, it would be the timber you extract, it would be the fuel wood you extract, it would be the nuts you get from the trees. So it is something you use directly, and it's rivalrous. If I eat the nut, you can't, right? And the nut is no longer there. There's also non-consumptive use, and that is if I go and enjoy myself in that forest, I leave it roughly the same as it was, and you can go and enjoy yourself after me, right? So it's a non-consumptive direct use of the forest. Indirect use values are such things as the fact that the trees store a lot of carbon. The watershed stores a lot of water. So if it rains, the water doesn't run off and becomes a flood, but it's stored for a while in the forest, so it protects against floods. But the water is then slowly released, so it also protects against drought later. And those are not direct uses of the forest, but indirect uses of the forest. What are option values? An option value is something that is a use value later, but you're certain that it can be done. So direct non-consumptive use value is recreation, and an option value is the potential for future recreation or tourism. So the difference between an option value and a direct use value is just that it's later, and it's not sure that it will happen, but there is definitely the possibility of it. A quasi-option value is a bit more complicated. An option value is something that is in principle there, but you just haven't taken the option yet. A quasi-option value is a bit more complicated because a quasi-option value depends on a future gain in technology or knowledge. And one example of a quasi-option value would be if there are pharmaceuticals hiding in the trees, if there's a cure for cancer in some of the nuts that are there that we don't know about. So we're not using it yet, and in that sense it's an option value, but it's a quasi-option value because we're actually not sure that it's there, right? Non-use values of the rainforest, let's look at bequest. Essentially, a bequest is that you care about the use values of your children and grandchildren and so on and so forth. That's a bequest value. Altruism is that your friends may enjoy the rainforest, right? And that may matter to you as well. And then there's the pure existence value, that is, we derive utility from the knowledge that the rainforest exists. And that can be because we have some sort of religious notion of stewardship towards nature. It may be that we take an ethical perspective and think that the monkeys that live in the rainforest have a right to exist just as we do. It doesn't matter where it comes from. What matters is that we derive, or at least some people derive value from the fact that something exists. Not because they want to use it directly or indirectly, not because they may want to use it in the future, not because they think that their children or their friends may use it. No, the sheer existence of the rainforest gives us pleasure.